beauty of live television. As Scott Hardy runs in here, flips on the switch, and he shall be holding his mic behind this Bama helmet right here in front of him during this segment. Scott, glad to have you up here, bud. And we just happen to have the Lake Martin Sports Roundup, and those that are tuning in out there, I'm sure it's going to be impossible for us to go through this program without going on ahead and hitting it up here as we start the second segment. Yes, we're in the Lake Martin region. Yes, we're both from Alexander City. And yes, both of us have decided to remain here. And the 99.9% of us that do live here get along with one another, and we're proud to be from here, and we want to make positive change in a positive direction. And anything that you've read out there that are unfortunate circumstances that happened here in this community over the last week, we apologize for them, not only for those that are in leadership roles that made decisions to do that, but for the community as a whole. I do want to sit up here and say, though, that there is a lot of positive progress going on out there, and the 99.9% of us that, I'm going to leave it at that, want to continue that positive progress, and we plan on doing it. There's always things that happen that you regret, and I'm sure both of those individuals that were involved with that, I'm not even going to mention it specifically because it's been all over the national news as well as the state news. But we're going to stay on the positive side here, as all of us should, and talk about a lot of the positive things that are going on in this community here in this opening segment real quick, Scott, because we are statewide, and it's good for people out there to see faces that are saying, it's not all bad. We're not all fighting. People aren't punching each other in open public spaces very often. It just is not happening, and there's a lot of positive things that are going on in this community, and they're going to continue to as well.
Yeah, last night's occurrences in no way, shape, form, or fashion are indicative or reflect the type of community that Alexander City was, and what it is trying to currently become. And you put it as perfectly as you could say it, is that there are so many other people that are attempting to try to do their part to make sure that what we're trying to progress or the goals we're trying to achieve are met. And to see something like that kind of detract from that is a little disappointing, but more so I think it's just you're sad and kind of disheartened for the community that so much positive has kind of been going and taking place, and then to have your name thrown in the same conversations as what happened in Birmingham. I think that one, it's embarrassing from from being here standpoint, but then when just from the state level as a whole, it kind of sums up. And our good friend, we have a producer, and he talks about all the time, like, Alabama politics, and this unfortunately kind of was a portion of that. But again, I'm extremely glad and proud to be from Alexander City, and there's no place I would rather be. So in the meantime, while things like that, some of the negativity is occurring, try to stay on the positive side of things and realize that as a whole, we're doing what it takes to make sure our community is a positive.
You brought up another community that could not be more indicative of what you're talking about, and that's the city of Birmingham. Anybody that's gone downtown in the city of Birmingham and have watched the revitalization that's going on in that community, they can punch each other in city council meetings, they can do whatever they want to do over there, but in the end, there's enough people and enough leadership in roles that are rejuvenating that community. It's unbelievable. I lived there right out of college. I go back there now and I go in the downtown area, I don't even hardly recognize it because of all of the growth that is going on down there, Scott. And so I hate, and look at what's going on with UAB. Take the program away, leadership comes to the forefront, they go out there and they bang the drums. Now you can't pull up AL.com. You can't pull up the city of Birmingham and not find something positive. Now, yeah, you can go into infrastructure. You can go into things that those leaders need to get a grip on, budgeting and all those problems, same as what's going on here in this local community. But it doesn't change the fact that there's a lot of positive things that are going on that have nothing to do with whatever decisions they're making, which sometimes are poorly contrived decisions out there. So the city of Birmingham, tip our hat to them. You saw where UAB is just getting a lot of money that's coming in flux. There's a lot in that community that are saying, look, this is important to us. UAB is super important to us. Football's just part of it, but it's a big part of it. It's what we're thinking towards tourism. And those guys have stood up and they put themselves out there. One is a friend of this community, grew up in this community, and Justin Kraft. And every time I see him out there, I'm like, I'm kind of proud Justin's out there. I want to tell people he's from Elliott City. He's living in Birmingham, and he's proud to be from Birmingham. But we'll say he's from here with somebody that'll go out there and do the positive things that he's brought to that community.
Yeah, and again, I just think that we're so close to becoming some of the things that we're talking about these other communities have. And again, it's just going to take a team effort to do so. And right now that team is in place, and you see a lot of people, the Chamber's doing a tremendous job with some of the new ideas. They've had 2 new great hires, and you see from a civic organization, I'm on that side of things in the nonprofit world, where a community, regardless of what's going on, you go $35,000 over a goal of $530,000. So in a community of this size, comparative to other communities that are larger to ours, we're doing extremely well on all fronts. So again, it's great to be able to reflect on some positive things, even in the light of some of the things that have occurred recently.
We'll go ahead and take a break here. I wanted to definitely get that out there before we move on into athletics. Athletics revolve around all of this. If budgets aren't in place and things aren't set priority to, like the city of Birmingham, as we mentioned with the UAB incident that went on this past year, then you start seeing turmoil happen. So it is somewhat part of it. More than anything, we care about these communities that we cover here in the state of Alabama, and we definitely care about the one that we live in here in the Lake Martin community. And things are well, and things shall be well. Let's say that right now. 256-234-6464 or 800-782-0108. More Sports Blitz Live presented by JR Sports Bar and Grill. Perfect timing to have you on board with us, as Satterfields is our segment sponsor. So I'm going to give you the floor, let you talk about Satterfields just a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. Go check out Satterfield on Highway 280. They do a lot for this community, too. That's the other thing that I think separates Satterfield from a lot of other businesses. They not only give you great service, have a fantastic selection, but they do a lot for this community, and I think that that's very important. I hope people keep that in mind when they're out there shopping.
Luke, we're in the Bama Blitz segment of the program. It's brought to you by Dane Sharp, personal injury attorney. So talk real quickly. We brought it up a couple of segments back, and I'd like to get your thoughts. We've talked about it a lot, but 24-17, 9-9 in the conference. Did get a conference win this past weekend, and the Alabama baseball program, whereas it may be mediocre right now, it's still a pretty consistent winner, it feels like, over the last 5 or 6 years.
Well, I think where we are is we're in a trap. We're in the Anthony Grant danger zone of he's not doing enough to get fired, but he's certainly not doing enough, in my opinion, to be lauded with praise either. So I think that Mitch Gaspard has put himself in a position to not be able to get fired and not really be a danger to go anywhere else or be hired anywhere else. I mean, it's just – I'm scared of where we are as a program. I don't feel like we're growing. And I know this past weekend we played Texas A&M, the number 3 team in the country. We played them very tight. The first ball game was close. Alabama loses the second ball game. Alabama does get out to a big lead and manages to hold on to win that ball game. And then this third ball game, Alabama's up 1-0 until the late innings. Texas A&M ties it up late, and then they go to extras, and A&M wins it. And that's just, those are the breaks. I get it. At the same time, it seems like that's the kind of thing that happens just about every weekend. I think there would be some Gaspard fans who would point to the fact that Alabama did take 2 of 3 from Ole Miss a couple of weekends ago in Tuscaloosa. And, hey, fantastic. I'm glad. I want them to do well. I just don't think that this is the guy to take Alabama to the next level.
Excuse me. Luke, we had a caller call in a couple segments ago and was questioning our opinion on the Lane Kiffin and Ashley Spry ordeal. And I know a couple months ago you learned what slide in the DMs, like what the connotation behind that was. So it appeared that Lane Kiffin was trying to do the same. What's your thoughts on that? And as a whole, is that something that Alabama people are worried about, or is just something that's going on in the off season?
I don't think this is a huge deal. I think that I can tell you right now that there are some coaches on just about every staff that play the field, so to speak. And I think Alabama and Auburn staffs would have some guys that would fit that bill. Lane Kiffin is just a little bit more high profile when it comes to that. That's his personal life. I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm not saying that it makes him a good person, but he's a heck of an offensive coach, and I wish that he would keep things like that a little more in check and a little less public. Here's the thing. I think it's more of a danger signal to anybody out there on any of these types of social media that try to play around. There's always evidence of it out there. I don't know why Lane Kiffin would go that route. As far as I know, nothing. The university obviously has had no comment on it, and I doubt they ever will have a comment on it. But we're going on some screenshots from, I think, an Auburn co-ed or a former Auburn co-ed or whatever. And, frankly, it's just the silly season. This is the kind of stuff that gets out in the silly season. I don't think it's that big of a deal necessarily. It's certainly not even close to a fireable offense. It's just a distraction. It's what Nick Saban will call clutter.
Luke, we're right in the thick of the NFL draft coming up shortly, and Alabama's got a number of players, as they always do, that are being talked about and thrown around, and decisions will be made in the next couple of days on where they end up. Can you give us a quick rundown on Alabama players that we can see drafted here in the first couple of days?
It's interesting. ESPN just did an entire mock draft. They literally had guys represent each team go up to a podium and draft the entire draft, the first round at least. And it was cool. I enjoyed it. And Reggie Ragland ended up going around number 17 or 18, maybe number 16, somewhere in that neighborhood. And I thought that was a good slot for him. Personally, I would love to see him fall to the Falcons, and I hope the Falcons have the wherewithal to take him. I just think that would be a lot of fun, having a guy from North Alabama playing for Atlanta, along with Julio Jones on that team that's pretty close to us that we can follow and see each week. I saw Jaron Reed go to the Buffalo Bills, and that's probably a good spot for him, and I think Alabama fans would be happy at least, because then you'd have Marcel Darius and Jaron Reed both starting along the same defensive line, which is pretty cool. But we don't get to see Buffalo that much unless you have the NFL direct ticket. So I would prefer he goes somewhere where we can actually keep an eye on him. And then A'Shawn Robinson has been dropping in this draft a little bit. And some people may be a little surprised by that just because he is such a talent. He's so quick. You remember his blocking that extra point attempt in the LSU game last year where he jumped over the center. But I think there's some other reasons behind the scenes on that, not anything to do with his play. And he may actually fall into the second round, which is both good and bad. It's bad in the sense that you certainly would prefer to be a first rounder, but it's good in the sense he may come into the season rejuvenated, and it may give him a little boost that he may need. Because one thing that I think some people have questioned about A'Shawn in the past is not necessarily his talent, not his speed, not his strength, and nothing like that. Maybe more so his desire to play football. He's a really young guy for his class, and I think he gave very, very serious consideration to coming back to playing for Alabama. That's one of the reasons that he felt like he just wasn't mature enough necessarily to go play in the NFL next year, but he's in the draft now, so he's going to have to do it. And then Ryan Kelly is a big surprise. This is a guy that has gone from relative obscurity to winning the Remington. He didn't give up a sack this year. He's going to probably end up in the first round, maybe towards the early parts of the second round. But most mock drafts I have seen have him going in the first round. And I'm a little surprised by that. A lot of them have him going to either Houston or to Arizona. And I think both would be fantastic landing spots for him. And finally, of course, Derrick Henry. Wouldn't it be interesting if he wound up in Carolina and you have Cam Newton at quarterback and Derrick Henry as your running back? It would really be a paradox for Alabama and Auburn fans, I think. But it would be kind of cool to have a quarterback who's that big and that powerful, along with a running back who's that big and that powerful. Carolina's got some other needs, probably more pressing than running back, but Personally, that's where I hope he winds up.
That would be a good get. And Jake Coker, is there any talk or any others from Alabama that may be late round picks, Luke?
Of course, Cyrus Jones will probably go, I'm thinking, maybe third round. Jake Coker, they've got him listed as a potential free agent. Dominic Jackson, also a potential maybe fifth, sixth round guy, somewhere in that neighborhood. I can't think of anybody right off the top of my head other than those, but it's going to be another big stock draft for Alabama. I've seen the Tide have as many as 7 guys projected to go in the draft. So I think it's going to be another Nick Saban very productive draft, and he'll be able to put some guys on that wall we get to see every other year when we go down there for the AHSA Super 7.
Final thoughts, Luke, on the Bama Blitz segment of the program, just other thoughts that are going on around the Bama Athletic Department.
Well, the softball team, they dropped one to Kentucky, but they also came back and won the series, so I thought that was a big deal. I mean, the softball team just is rolling right along, and they're a very, very strong program. Football-wise, recruiting is going about as well as it can. There's going to be a huge commitment from the second or maybe the second or third ranked quarterback in the country. He's out of Hawaii, and I'm going to try to pronounce his name. Tua Tagovailoa? I'm not really sure. It's very difficult. There are a lot of odd consonants and misplaced vowels in there, and it makes it tough for a country boy like myself to pronounce that name. But Alabama's going to have to get used to it because I think he's going to commit to Alabama. He's been a lean to Southern Cal for a long, long time. He comes through the South, and he just takes a tour of Alabama, Ole Miss, Auburn, and then he goes and spends about a week in Tuscaloosa. And his parents just fell in love with the place. I feel like he's going to commit to Alabama on May 2nd. That's going to be a huge pickup for Alabama. And it's going to be the second straight quarterback with the quick feet, the mobile quarterback, so to speak. This kid's coming from the same high school as Marcus Mariota. That's also a very interesting tidbit. And you have Jalen Hurts from this class and then this kid from the next class potentially. All of a sudden, Alabama's becoming mobile quarterback youth.
Luke, we sure do appreciate you being a part of the program tonight. Dane Sharp, attorney at law, was our sponsor here on the Bama Blitz, and look forward to catching up with you as we move on throughout the week, okay?
All right, guys. Y'all have a good night.
Thank you, and that's Luke Robinson. Does a tremendous job out there. Make sure to follow him, not only here, but you can follow his writings on B Metro as well as the Alexander City Outlook and the Lake Martin Living, and I think he's as good, or I'm kind of biased towards what he does for us here on these programs, but I think he's one of the best writers here in the state. I really do. I know I'm very biased there, but
read an article and then
yeah, you have your own opinion. I've heard that from a lot of people, and he is one of the best out there. 256-234-6464, 800-782-0108. More Sports Blitz Live right after this.